straight into this election that let's using Imo and Kogi as the benchmark. Let's leave Bayelsa because it is still in process. So talk to me about what were some of your takeaway from the elections in Imo State.
Okay, so Imo has come and gone, and the candidate of APC, Opuzodima, the incumbent governor, has been returned for a second and final term. And of course, it's not a perfect election. There are issues. And since you are talking of takeaways, I think I want to talk about it in two ways, the positives and the negatives. So we had a successful election on the first ballot, a winner emerged. And of course, the fatalities weren't many, even in the lead up to the election. I recall the activities of unknown gunmen in Imo. One was scared whether there would be smooth election. And save for skirmishes and few, altercations there and there, the election, I would say, is largely peaceful, largely in context. Given, like I said, the activities of unknown gunmen in Osu, in Olu, in, quite a number of places there. Even the indigenes are scared to come out in the evening. How much more during the elections? So the election in Imo was largely peaceful. A winner emerged on the first ballot. The incumbent governor got re-elected. Then elections started on the average early enough. Of course, not across board. The election start at 8:30, which was the advertised time for INEC, and the advertised time by INEC for election to commence. We have those who started early, we have those who started a bit late, but not outrageously late. So we still have elections starting within an hour of period that it should start. And I believe that issues of disenfranchisement really didn't rear its ugly head. People who have the voters card were able to get their accreditation and voting done in a seamless manner. We have the result, 27 local governments, the results were all out before 10 a.m. yesterday morning, a winner at the match. And so it's a kind of seamless exercise.
You landed on the point of seamless exercise, and then you touched on 27 local government areas, you mentioned. Now, looking at the margin, I'd like us to stay on this one. If we've got a total of 2.4 million voters in a state as registered voters, out of which 2.3 collected their PVCs, and about they still have about 100 and something thousand PVCs not collected. And now we're having just 500,000 persons coming out, less than a million coming out. What does that say about the political participation in that state?
Again, you need to put issues in context. Opuzodima was the clear winner by 540,000 votes. Yes. The person who came next, I think, scored about 70 something. So we on the average, I think we have about 700,000 plus that voted. So if you put it in context, not on number of registered voters, but on the number of those who collected their PVC, because once you didn't collect your PVC, it's assumed as you are not interested in participating in the electoral process. So even if you are saying 30% of the people came out to vote, that is still significant. Given that if you compare that to what happened in Anambra, the election that brought in Professor Chukwuma Soludo, only 10.24% of voter turnout, voted Soludo into power. And you could see that in Ihiala, in that election could not hold on the first day. INEC had to go back and conduct supplementary election in the the entire Ihiala local government, as well as some other pockets of polling units. But in the case of Imo, in all the 27 local government elections held, and a winner, like I said, emerged. However, there are issues, and we need to flag those issues. Yaga Africa, one of the civil society accredited, one of the accredited civil society organizations, raised a red flag in a press statement they issued yesterday that in about 40 polling units where election did not take place, results were uploaded. And I think that was that should not have happened, because whoever was the returning officer ought to have been given names of polling units where results are not expected. And when you have results collated from such, you should have discarded those results or review. Now, my brother, what this election of Saturday suffered much from was lack of activation of the powers of the returning officer and collation officer. A lot of shenanigans took place at the polling units level. And staying on Imo, I've told you Yaga Africa flagged about 40 polling units where election did not take place, and yet results were uploaded on IRF portal. How come? I've also seen on social media inflated results where the number of accredited voters will be like 2, and then when you look at the Form C80, you see 50 people voted. There was a particular very sorry instance where about 40-something people were accredited and about 560 scores was awarded to APC, and just sprinkled of other scores were given to the opposition. So I saw about 5 or 6 of that on social media where there were obvious cases of inflated results. Because the beauty of Beavers is that Beavers is able to show the number of accredited voters. So when you upload that result, it will show the number of accredited voters and then the scores of each of the candidates. So if you have
we'll return to pick up these issues you flagged already. Now there's still more questions to be answered, so just stay with us. We'll be taking all of those shortly after now, but we'd like the listener to know we'll get them talking relating to the issues of the just concluded elections in Imo and of course in Kogi state, but we would let Bayelsa stay until they concluded. But then these two, they concluded, we can talk about them now, but let's talk about it after this time.
Lifestyle goals or just getting service that is designed just for you. Yeah, don't quite like all of that at all. That is why we specially created Providence Bank for you to take care of the daily experiences at Providence Bank. We believe that banking should be all about you and your business and how to get you to the next level. If you do not already have Providence Bank accounts, please speak with our business concierge on 0700 77 684 387. Or email businessconcierge@providencebank.com to switch to a future-forward banking experience. Providence Bank, future-forward banking. Providence Bank, future-forward banking. All your entertainment stories. With the entertainment of the Smooth Breakfast Show. Top trending stories of the entertainment scene on the product. It's moving. And everything in between. Tune into the great time and keep up with the smooth paparazzi as we bring you up to speed with the latest in the world of entertainment. Every Tuesday and Thursday from 8:15 a.m. From time.
We're smooth 98.1 FM, 18 minutes past the hour of 9 o'clock. It is still Lagos Talks 981. I still got Jide Joe still with us. Still dwelling on the elections just concluded in not Bayelsa now, but just concluded in Imo and Kogi State. And so before we went on, you were going to tell us flagging issues that should raise concern for stakeholders, especially INEC. And you talked about cases of polling units where it was alleged that elections were not held, but results were called, and you feel that INEC should have done something about it. We lost the connection, but just feel free to have us reconnect with you shortly after now. So that in itself are some of the issues being raised in a state with over 2 million voters. Our guest this morning is helping us understand that for at least people come out to vote, because the issues around the elections before it was even, beyond imagination that people would expect elections to have held because of the, issues. Let's not forget that was the same state where the Labour president, Ajaero, was said to have been beaten allegedly. So you're back, Jide Ojo. You have to unmute.
Okay, I can hear you now.
So go on now. You were speaking of the flags, things that were raised by independent observers.
So there are a number of about 40 polling units where Jag Africa said election did not hold, yet results were uploaded. And then there were a number of inflated results on some of the uploaded results. One positive thing about this last Saturday's election was the fact that INEC lived to its promise to upload the result on the IRF portal. So citizens were able to follow through, and that's how we know that there were discrepancies between results that were uploaded and the number of accredited voters. Because if those results were not uploaded, there is no way you will independently be able to verify whether the results were inflated. And I was saying before we
go on, make your point, we're listening.
That the major challenge election was the people who were supposed to oversight the process failed to exercise their discretionary power to review the result. If you are a collation officer, someone brought you results, you are supposed to check the beavers to know the number of accredited voters and cross-check with the ECATA form and see if it tallies. If it does not tally, you then ask the PO, presiding officer, questions about what really happened. Why is the number of accredited voters, why did it not tally with the number of voters? Why is there inflated result? But it will seem like either those returning officers / collation officer were induced, or they just were scared for their lives and wanted to get it over and done with. So just bring anything, let's get our own work done and let's leave. Otherwise,
you were going to sum up that point so we can proceed to the next.
Otherwise, there are enough safeguards within the electoral system to checkmate fraud. And first, you have the first layer of checkmating by the polling agents. Every political party is supposed to have a polling agent. And I don't expect a polling agent to sign on to a result that obviously have an inflated figure. So if a polling agent did not sign, he has a right to level complaint at the collation center to say, look, this result, check the beavers. You will see that the number of accredited voters is just 2, And what this presiding officer wrote is 250. How did it come about? That will have activated a review process. But maybe they themselves, the polling agents were themselves compromised, and they kept mute and allow inflated results to be collated. So again, that is human error, which we blame on INEC, but I think it's just the attitude that people brought to bear on this election that is an opportunity for them to cash out.
So at the point when these results are brought over to the collation center now, so when people flag results from it keeps recurring every election. So should elections be stopped the collation be stopped at that moment?
Well, it's not like collation will be stopped. It's just simply that you will not collate that particular unit's result. You know, it's two different things. Someone has raised an issue. Maybe a poll agent says, in my polling unit, only 10 people voted. But if you see this result, Oga, if you see this result, it's more than 10. That person who is a collation officer ought not to have collated that result. He or she should have just removed that result and put it in a specific envelope. It's the same power that you have to cancel results where there is violence. And you saw a lot of that. I saw when I was watching the live telecast of the results announcement, there are places where the returning officer says, oh, we cancel or we scored this polling unit 0 because Beavers was bypassed. And the rule book says, if you do not use Beavers for accreditation, the score for that polling unit is 0. If there is violence, you cancel the result outrightly. So those integrity pillars, those integrity nuggets were there. But it's like there is a connivance for it not to be, such powers not to be exercised. And you can see the low level where the Labour Party agent at the collation center, at the final collation center, was beaten up by his colleagues for raising so many issues. Of course, the returning officer was right to say, look, I cannot receive petition at this point. Take your petition to INEC. And within 7 days, the law is on the side of INEC to review the result of election, even when that result has been declared. INEC has that power to review the result that has already been declared. I will tell you, in Kano, it happened. A result was declared under duress. That professor in one of the wards in Kano wrote officially to INEC resident electoral commissioner saying that this result, I collated and announced it under duress. And INEC eventually declared that election inconclusive. It was an election that involved the former majority leader of House of Reps. I've forgotten his name now. That election was after the declaration had been made, that result or that election was declared inconclusive.
Allow me to come in.
To go and conduct supplementary election to conclude that election.
Okay, so this is where let's sum up the Imo issue so we can go over to Kogi now. So quickly, the relationship with this, the opposition party in Imo State, led by Labour, simply they've rejected the results, saying there was no election, even going by some of these red flags you raised and some of these things identified by observers in that state. But yet, a result has been declared, a governor has been elected already. So are we seeing a tradition we're heading back to the courts again, that's to decide who people have elected in a particular state with what we're seeing right now?
Of course, Senator Etan, while he was addressing the press yesterday at his residence, said he was heading to court. We haven't heard from the camp of PDP, but it will not be out of place for them to go to court. But you see, I also need to educate our listeners that judiciary will only nullify an election where there's a proven case of fraud in a widespread number of places. The law, as we have it, does not expect a perfect election. Just like you and I, when we are scored excellent in an exam, we don't have to score 100% in that subject to be awarded excellent. 75 marks will get you excellent. But that means even though you are awarded excellent, you still miss 25 marks. So what the court will look at, as according to section 152 of the Electoral Act 2022, is whether there was substantial non-compliance. It is only where there's a proven case of substantial non-compliance that the result of an already announced election will be nullified. But before we get to the courts, INEC leadership, INEC has the power to review what has already been declared by the returning officer. Unlike the situation up to 2015 and 2019 rather, up to 2019, whatever is decided by the returning officer stands and can only be reversed by the court, by the tribunal. But with the 2022 Electoral Act, within 7 days of receiving a petition, INEC leadership has the power to investigate and reverse the already announced outcome, which is why I cited the example in Kano, where INEC did that. Already announced result was reversed, and the results in contentious polling units were deducted, and they conducted supplementary election. That can also be activated for Imo State.
Okay, thank you very much. So we would just let you rest a bit now while we get you ready for Kogi to help us understand how it all panned out in Kogi to see these results being declared, even though we know that it said that there was supposed to be an election to be held later this week for some 15,000 persons who were not able to cast their vote, but yet the result has been declared already. But that will be after this. We're Smooth 98.1 FM. Stay tuned.
Please let me get a pen inside my bag, the nude color bag, and a sheet of paper, maybe the jotter inside.
So do we stop it?
Forward acting into speed, innovation, convenience, lifestyle goals, or just simply getting service that is designed just for you. Yeah, we thought you might like all of that and more. That is why we specially created Providence Bank for you to take care of your daily experiences. At Providence Bank, we believe that banking should be all about you and your needs, and how to get you to the next level. If you already have a Providence Bank account, please speak with our business concierge on 0700 77 684 387 or email businessconcierge@providencebank.com to switch to a future forward banking experience. Providence Bank, future forward banking. This is
We're Smooth 98.1 FM, 28 minutes now past before it is top of the hour 10. And we're still going back to the elections over the weekend. Still going to pick up lessons from what we can see from that elections held in Imo, Bayelsa, and Kogi. 2 states results concluded already and left with Bayelsa probably before 4 marks today. The results should have been declared. But Mr. Jide Ojo, let's get back to Kogi State. Was Kogi any different in terms of the issues you have spotted in terms of issues during the elections, materials not arriving on time, not voting on time, and several other issues? What were those things you identified?
Please come again.
We want to, I'm asking to see if Kogi was any different in terms of the issues that we noticed that could have affected voting, or in terms of irregularities, if it was any different?
Of course, there were issues in Kogi as well. We have issues around pre-filled result sheets, which was a new law, because even during the 2023 general elections, there was no reported case of already pre-filled result. And we saw that widespread in Ogori-Magongo local government, where in 10 wards, in 9 out of 10 wards, this happened. If I will give you a graphical illustration of what a ward is, a ward consists of between 10 and 15 polling units. So if there are 10 wards in a local government and you have already pre-filled result sheets in 9 out of those 10, that tells you the enormity of the crime that took place in that local government. And according to INEC statement that was issued late on Saturday night, this happened in Ogori-Magongo, in Okene, in Adavi, in Okehi, in Ajakuta, which is in the Kogi Central Senatorial District, which is where you have Ebiras, and where the incumbent governor and the Yaya Bello and the incoming governor, Usman Ododo, comes from. So it will obviously show that they resorted to self-help in Kogi Central and had already pre-filled result. But while ANEC said it's investigating the case, and that those who are involved in this crime will all be fished out and prosecuted. We await whether this will be the case, because as I've advocated earlier today on another media platform, I said, look, for INEC to redeem its credibility, it has to punish bad behavior, not to reward bad behavior. All the people posted to those polling units where results were pre-filled, they have their names, their phone numbers, their contact address. So first, they should not be paid. Secondly, they should be handed over to police for proper investigation of what happened. Were they handed over the results, or did they fill it themselves? Who induced them to do that? They need, even for Imo State, those 40 thereabout polling units where there were no election and results were uploaded. Those who uploaded those results needs to be fished out and prosecuted, because that is also a crime. And until when we start punishing bad behavior, the culture of impunity will continue to subsist and even becomes widespread. Because you cannot say because a ruling party wins, a ruling party at the center wins, and then you just look the other way. Then in the next round of election, the same desperate politicians will copy from the same text and even have it in a more larger scale than what was expressed. So it's a new law that we have pre-filled result sheets. And of course, there were issues around violence, psychological, physical, and structural violence in Kogi.
So Kogi again, let's see, because it's been declared the results now. APC candidate Usman Ododo has been declared the winner with 446,237 votes compared to that of the SDP candidate Mutala Ajaka, who's polled 259,052. Match this with the result we've seen in terms of rivals in Imo State. Does this tell you how keenly this the race for the government house in Kogi State is?
Of course, I think if we discount the pre-filled results, and we will say that the outcome actually reflects the wish of majority of Kogites. And that's what, and I'm putting this in context. See, the opposition in Kogi is divided. And a house divided against itself cannot stand. What happened, and when you look at the electoral map of Kogi, particularly the outcome of that election, you see that Muritala Ajaka did very well in Kogi East, which is his home base. Is from the Igala ethnic group. So he did very well in that place, but he didn't do well in Kogi Central. He didn't do well in Kogi West. For Kogi West, where Dino Melai came from, where Leke Abejide came from, where Ibrahim of, is he APP or something, where he came from, AA, Action Alliance came from. You have three strong candidates from the same senatorial district. How will you not divide your votes? So, assuming that the opposition decide and unite behind one candidate that is formidable, assuming, for instance, the candidates that came out of Kogi West decided to throw their weight behind Ajaka of Kogi East, they will have been able to neutralize whatever Yaya Bello and his protege, the incoming governor, throws at them. But unfortunately, they went into this election. You have about 4 to 5 strong candidates. And let me tell you this, they say politics is local. You can only rig where you are very popular. Look at it this way. Yaya Bello belongs to the APC. APC controls the center. Nobody wants, no smart politician, and I'm putting it in context, smart politicians want to be in opposition. Because opposition politics is very, very distasteful, and it's very, very, it could mean a lot of discomfort. I give example all the time of Siberia and Saudi Arabia. Opposition in Nigeria is like being in Siberia. And you know, in Siberia, it's very cold, it's inclement weather, you will not have access to good things of life. But many politicians want to be in Saudi Arabia, where the oil flows, where there is a lot of money. So the point is, ordinarily, people want to belong to the party at the center. And you also notice that recently, just a couple of weeks ago, the federal government approved about 5 billion for distribution of palliatives arising from the removal of fuel subsidy. All of those palliatives, rice, beans, grains that were distributed close to election, it's like vote buying. In a sense, people will say, okay, this is APC that said we should give you. Meanwhile, you that is coming from opposition, you cannot even afford to give people 1,000 naira. So this vote buying stuff, the fact that a particular state doesn't want to belong to the opposition, to the power that the party at the center, the disparate nature of the opposition in Kogi State, all of this combined to give victory to the APC in that state. So it's not like
that point. I think that the point has been noted. It was as a result of a divided house. That's why, you know, the opposition is not being able to push out the ruling party. From what you're looking at, you can see the votes were divided. That point made. Now, I'd like us to go to let's look at the role of security in how this election turned out. Would you say the security played a major role in helping this election go the way it has? You know, we've seen it now.
Well, out of every 12, there will be a Judas. So we have those who colluded with politicians to undermine the elections. I saw a footage, I think it was somewhere in Imo, where people were arrested.
Hello? Okay, well, I will try.
And I bet in that situation where somebody was caught and it was on social media that the guy was aiding and abetting rigging. So, but again, thousands of policemen were deployed. So if you have one that went rogue, you cannot use that to characterize everyone who was on election duty. So I would say they did their best to provide security. Don't also forget that it's not only police. We have the DSS, we have the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, we have the ICPC, we have the Immigration, Customs, and other paramilitary, all of them that were deployed. And the fact that the fatalities in this election, I only knew about one death. So which means that at least in terms of fatality, we were able to keep it very, very, very low. Although, you know, there are still security breaches because in places like Bayelsa, there were abductions, a couple of abductions. In fact, yesterday afternoon, INEC has to cry out that their officials have been trapped or held hostage in Brass local government and seeking the security agencies to help them rescue them from Brass local government. That is not something that should have happened in a free, fair election. So why would you be holding election officials hostage? Why would there be an abduction? Thankfully, the lady that was supposedly the SPO that was abducted in Nimbe on her way to her duty post on Friday night was later released on Saturday evening. So we thank God for that. But on the whole, I would say the election was largely peaceful. Thank God for the deployment of the security agencies, because if you want to castigate them for some of those skirmishes and breaches, you need to understand what would have happened if they were not present at all. If they were not present at all, it would have been shootout among party rivals, and that means there will be a lot of bloodletting. There was also this instance that was flagged about the polling agent of Labour Party that was beaten black and blue by fellow polling agents at the collation center in Imo. I think the police should have intervened and rescued that young man. He was just simply doing his job. Yes, he was pontificating and raising issues, but that doesn't warrant him being beaten up. And the police should not have gone without rescuing or attempting to rescue.
Thank you very much. We would get calls in now. When we come back, we will save INEC for you. We would like to get the last word from you for INEC after this time. Let's see, that will be after this. So when we come back, we'll get the calls. We'll start with the calls on 014489981 relating to the off-cycle elections just held in the 3 states. We'll be right back. We are Smooth 98.1 FM. Let's close up with, finish up with a call. Then this your question will be for the last. I'll be the last question.
Hello? Hello?
Are you talking
Can you hear
to
me? Okay, is he ready now?
Airtel.com.ng/HBB to get started.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not serious. Sorry about that. Thank you. Wow.
Subscribe for 4,000 now at Shipma. This is a woman. Let's talk about the world population and potential. A story about a trade. Be a sheep. That is the fuel to my life to make a difference in as many children's lives like the
We're smooth 98.1 FM. We're back. It's the final lap of the conversation. So let's get your calls in now as on 014489981 reacting. Let's get this first call in. Good morning to you. Good morning to you, Chika. If you can do this for us in under a minute, we'll be very happy. So what's your assessment, and did INEC learn anything new or put anything new into this election just concluded?
Government has actually been started for over 3 years now. People there no longer travel. The local government is counting, and the APC got 8,000 votes. The question you ask yourself is that, where did the vote come from? And most people there didn't vote, because a lot of us come from there and have friends over there. We make calls over there. And actually told us that there's a lot of voter apathy. During the presidential election, that is widely contested and that is actually largely participatory. The 3 major candidates, or 4 major candidates in that election, got 460,000 votes put together. One Atsenuwa, the article, and the Kwankwaso. Then in this election, that there's a wide voter apathy, and that is marked by various irregularities. And bear in mind that 40 polling units also falls under the same local government. And then within APC, scoring 540,000 votes. And it's telling us that it's largely people. We experienced what transpired in Bayelsa, what transpired in Kogi. All in all, the election is nothing sort of what happened in Kogi. As far as I'm concerned, Mahmoud Yakub doesn't have any business speaking in INEC and conducting any election. A slap on them. That people that were actually held in high esteem are actually collaborators in this state.
Okay, Chika, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. We just had the call in that. So, Mr. Jide, just hold on. We got a few more calls in, and then we'll get back to you shortly. Hello, good morning. Your name and location. All right, Soji, so what would you say INEC has learned from the past election and put in practice?
We need to commend the instead of certificate, well commended because it is all relevant issues on this election and other elections. And certainly, if we are not there, we are not in on ground in that place. There's no way we can talk concerning what went on in that place. But all I see is that all relevant issues that were raised, INEC, I pray, will look into them as a way forward for this country. Thank you very much.
All right, so there we have it. Let's go back to Jide now. Hello, Jide.
I can hear you.
Okay, so we had 2 calls in a while, but still have a lot more wanting to reach out to you, but we'd like you to respond before we get on to the final question for you. I had a Chika who called in and said, those 40 polling units you mentioned are part of our local government area, which in itself, due to security issues, they've not been people there. So how come they had this turnout? And those are the questions he's raising. And then Soji came in and said, well, you've raised the right issues in terms of flagging down the issues in the election, and you've done well.
Yeah, for me, I think eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. If we get it right, citizens' oversight over the electoral process will be needful. If not for citizens' vigilance, how would we have known that there are pre-filled result sheets in Kogi, at least in those areas where elections were suspended? So we need to continually interrogate. And I put all of this to the nature and character of Nigerian political desperados, the political class who will stop at nothing to undermine the electoral process. They will induce, they will threaten, they will use violence. And you don't want to be martyred because of election. We have been involved in training of election officials, and we do also tell the participants at those workshops that no election is worth your life. Only the living can even testify at the court. So if they coerce you to do the wrong thing, do it, but report officially to your office to say, yes, I did it, but I did it under duress. That's why there is not provision for INEC within 7 days to review the outcome of an election once they receive a petition. So those who are those who are not those who are displeased with the outcome of this election, particularly among the contestants, they have every right to quickly put their petition through to INEC, both at the state office and the INEC headquarters. If they have to send it by courier, let them do so, and seek the review of the result of that election with preliminary evidences that they can put together. Let's see whether INEC will do anything, even if they will still go to court for final resolution of this issue. But it's about our attitude. It's the attitude of those who are involved in the electoral process. Some of them who believe that opportunity like this is for them to cash out, either as election officials, as poll agents, as electorate themselves, as voter. We had incidents of people being paid money to vote.
We have to go now.
This is wrong attitude, yeah.
Thank you very much for your time today. I've been speaking with Jide Ojo, political affairs analyst, speaking on the just concluded elections in Bayelsa and Kogi, and above all, with a summary: citizens must do their part. They must have what he called eternal vigilance in this process, instead of just putting it all at the doorstep of INEC to get things right. And then that's how we wrap it up. We'll say thank you so much, Jide Ojo, for your time today.
It's my pleasure. Do have a great day.
And you too. And to everyone who listened and to those still trying to call, but I will say thank you so much. It never stops at the Smooth Station. Just make sure you keep listening, and more to come. My name is Omatseye Atsenuwa. Good morning.